So welcome to this afternoon's program, which we're highlighting the Hubbard County Soil and Water Conservation District. My name's Carolyn White, and I'm currently the president of League of Women Voters in Park Rapids. League is a national organization that was formed 105 years ago, so we've been around for a little while. And we know that there was a league in Park Rapids in 1935, and it was probably stayed active until somewhere in the 50s or early 60s. And then it just, wasn't enough volunteers, something happened, and we haven't been able to trace that. But in 2000, a group of ladies got together and restarted and reestablished the League of Women Voters here in Park Rapids. So we are celebrating our 25th year this year. And in June sometime, time to be announced, and speakers in the works, and venue needs to be made. We're going to have a big celebration, so sort of take a look and keep your ears open for that. The League of Women Voters is a 501(c) nonpartisan organization. We neither support or oppose any candidate or political party at any level of government, but we will always work on vital issues of concern to the members and to the public. The League encourages informed, active participation in government and in politics. And before we get started here, I'll introduce the panel, but some housekeeping things. In case people haven't been here before, the bathrooms are out that door and down the hallway. Make sure that your phone is either turned off or muted. The program is being recorded, so that sort of means that, especially if you're sitting next to the camera there, you may have your whispers picked up. So, camera's over on that side. But the program will be put up on our YouTube channel. And you all saw that the SWCD is collecting water samples tonight, so if you've brought those, make sure you get that back there. As of this being a non-election year for our Park Rapids League, we don't usually have an election on the off-season like this. We are trying to show a spotlight on the unappreciated races that are found on the back of your ballot. Everybody remembers those long ballots we got in November, and you flip it over and there's a bunch more, and everybody goes, do I have to vote back here? You don't, but these are important offices also. And so we're going to take time in our programs this year to say, these are the guys on the back of the ballot, and they're just as important. They're just as the high-profile contests that are on the front side. So today we're going to do the Soil and Water Conservation District. To help us understand the importance of these local conservation leaders this afternoon, the panel will provide some valuable insight into the function and the impact on Hubbard County. Each one of our panelists here will have about 15 minutes or so to speak, and then we'll take questions after that. So our speakers this afternoon are Heidi Anderson-Thomas, who was elected in 2021 to represent District 3 on the Hubbard County Soil and Water Board, and she has served as the board chair since 2023. And then there's Megan Fitzgerald, who is the Community Engagement and Grant Reporting Coordinator for the district. And she has a background in social and environmental sciences. And then we have Tara Young, who is a University of Minnesota educator, agriculture and natural resource systems person for Hubbard County. She's recently completed her MS in applied plant science at the University of Minnesota and grew up on a small Hereford farm near Buffalo, Minnesota, and works on topics such as gardening, soil health, crop and livestock production, woodland management, and shoreline management. So she works in cooperation with the Soil and Water District. So what I'm going to do is just turn this over to the ladies, and they'll go ahead with their presentations.
Hi everyone, can everybody hear me? Not well.
You've got to turn the mic on,
It is on.
okay, and get it pretty close.
Can you hear me?
Way to
Okay.
go.
I don't want to scream at you. Appreciate you having us here today. Like Cece said, we're here to talk about the function and purpose of a soil and water conservation district. We do have an elected board that's on the back of the ballot, and I know a lot of people are unaware of what a soil and water conservation district is, so we're just here to provide some background. So, who are we? Soil and water conservation districts are local units of government. We manage and direct natural resource management programs at the local level. We work both in urban and rural environments, but obviously in Hubbard County, it's largely rural. In the urban environments, we work largely with stormwater and runoff. Soil and water districts were established by Minnesota State Statute, Chapter 103C, and Heidi will talk about that a little bit later. We work with various partners, so primarily we work with private landowners, assisting with providing technical assistance and financial assistance for conservation practices, but we also partner with other conservation groups, so Extension quite often, NRCS, Minnesota DNR, local governments, a variety of different agencies. We are political subdivisions of the state, and again, we do have an elected board, so we call our board supervisors. They serve 4-year staggered terms, and we have 5 supervisors on the board. So, a little bit of history about soil and water conservation districts. They were born basically out of the Dust Bowl when there was a national recognition that we weren't doing a great job of managing our soil resources. And so there was a federal push to have more information available to ag producers about healthy soil practices. There was a little bit of a local pushback, people not wanting that federal influence, and so they came up with the idea of a soil and water conservation district board who, they're basically elected local leaders. Traditionally, they were farmers and producers. Now they come from a wide variety of backgrounds, but that's a little bit of the history of it. There are 88 soil and water conservation districts in Minnesota. Almost every county has one, except Hennepin and Ramsey. They have a little bit different structure, and then there are 2 soil and water, or 2 counties that have 2 soil and water districts. One would be, I don't know, it's in the northeast because it's Polk. Cook? Polk, yeah, okay. And then East Otter Tail is one. But again, we work primarily with private landowners, doing a variety of different conservation practices. We do have here, let me get this off my screen. Okay. I just pulled up some mission statements. Every soil and water conservation district is different depending on the different types of resources we have and then the needs of the community. And so I just pulled up some mission statements from Hubbard County and then the surrounding Cass and Beltrami. And they're a little bit different, but we all basically focus on the same thing. So our mission is to conserve, protect, and enhance soil and water resources by providing leadership, education, and assistance. SWCDs largely are funded through grants. We get grants, both competitive and non-competitive, from a number of different sources. One of the big ones is Bowser, the Minnesota Board of Water and Soil Resources. We get an annual allocation that's non-competitive as well as competitive grants we apply for. There are a number of different grants we have through them. We also get a county allocation for the Wetland Conservation Act. So the state delegates enforcement of the Wetland Conservation Act to counties. Some counties will then delegate it to soil and water districts if they lack the staff capacity to enforce it, and that's the case in Hubbard. So Hubbard Soil and Water does enforce the Wetland Conservation Act. We also can charge fees for services, but it's pretty uncommon. We have a number of federal grants right now through, we have EPA, Forest Service grants. We also receive funding through competitive grants through MPCA, Minnesota Department of Health. We have a number of DNR forestry grants to do forestry planning and implementation. and then other conservation organizations as they come up. So here's just a small overview of our funding. We have our revenues, so where we're getting these grants, and then our expenses where we're spending these out. And this is just for 2025. And these ratios change depending on the year, depending on what we're focusing on.
Those are a little hard to read from back here. Could you just point out what those different colors represent?
Sure, so this lighter blue is state, so it's the biggest chunk if we're looking at this one. The darker blue, the tiniest little chunk, that's local or soil and water district. Orange is county, and then green is federal. Yeah. Okay.
And then that other one,
Yep.
the expenses?
Yeah.
Oh, the same.
Yep, and so the blue, the lighter blue is state, the darker blue is federal, and then the green is federal, darker blue is local district, and then the orange, which would be county, it doesn't even show up there because it's such a small pie piece. Okay, so again, just some general operations and functions of the Soil and Water Conservation District. Some soil and water districts are co-joined with their counties, so in the case of like locally like Cass and Beltrami, they're both part of the county. Hubbard isn't. We are co-located in the USDA offices, so we work with NRCS and Farm Service. We're in the same building, but different organizations. In general, so again, the main function, or a large function of a soil and water district is to provide cost sharing, technical assistance for conservation practices. So we help with planning, implementation, the paperwork, all different aspects of it, reporting.
Can you say what some of those conservation projects would be? And
Yeah.
maybe that's coming later.
Yep, it's my next slide.
All right.
So unlike other natural resource agencies such as the DNR and environmental services departments, we are a non-regulatory authority. So we aren't able to, and it's not our function to go out and tell landowners what they have to do. We provide assistance, and it's on a voluntary basis. The only exception is in the case of the Wetland Conservation Act, where we do have enforcement authority. We also have no taxing authority, so that's why we're primarily grant-based funding. And then again, participation in our programs is strictly volunteer. Okay, so here it is, our areas of focus. Again, this varies between soil and water conservation districts based on the needs of the community and also the resources. So obviously we're in an area that's northern lakes and forests ecoregion, so there's a lot of forestry, a lot of shoreline protection, and then a certain amount of ag. So for forestry, we do assist with small acre plantings, cost share for tree implementation. We do a lot of forest stewardship planning, and then we also run a tree sale program, which is actually going on right now, where we purchase trees, bare root trees, smaller trees in bulk from nurseries, and then we sell them to landowners at a really reduced price.
But you have to buy them in quite large quantity, correct?
We buy them, but landowners have to buy them, they come in bundles of 25. So it would be, say you've got red pine, you get 25. Yeah. So there's that. We do a lot of shoreline restoration and stream bank stabilization, so that's restoring the shore to prevent erosion. We do a lot of water quality monitoring on a number of lakes throughout the county. A certain number of agricultural BMP, so that would be installing cover crops, putting in like fencing cattle exclusions to protect the water resource. We assist landowners with conservation easements. Conservation easements are an agreement that a landowner enters into with the state. An agreement is a covenant put on the property that the landowner agrees not to develop it, and then they receive a portion of the, I think it's 60% of the land property value in agreement to not develop that any further. We can assist with pollinator plantings, urban stormwater, so again, runoff. We do a number of outreach and education events, both for school-age kids and then for the public in general. So for school, we have a freshwater festival, and it's just introducing kids to all different aspects of water. We do a grazing workshop for agricultural producers that brings them up to speed on some of the latest soil health practices and innovations. We do nitrate testing, like Rachel is doing in the back right there. So we will do it in events like this, and then we also have free nitrate testing in our office the first Friday of every month from 9 to 2. And then we also, yep.
I have a question about Restore the Shore. How do you go about that? Do you send someone out to homeowners shore, or do you work with lake associations, or how do you provide that service?
Right, so Restore Your Shore is a combination of DNR, soil and water, but anyway, Jake in our office would be involved with that. He's our watershed coordinator, and he works with lake associations to do that. Lake associations are really the ones that push that program forward.
Okay.
Mhm.
And so the lake association would contact your office to come out and give an assessment?
Yep.
Thank you.
Mhm. Okay, so I'm not going to get into this too deeply, but our work is largely directed by water plans. So in order to pursue different projects and programs, it has to be listed as a priority within these different plans. And historically, every county had a water plan. The state has been moving away from that in recent years, moving toward watershed planning with the understanding that water does not follow political boundaries, which makes sense. And so the state now has this program called One Watershed, One Plan. As you can see on this map, Hubbard County has 3 major watersheds. In the northwest, it's Mississippi River headwaters in the dark green. The yellow goldish would be the Leech Lake River watershed, and then in the southern half is the Crow Wing River watershed. So each one of these watersheds has their own plans that contain goals and priorities that inform our work and sort of direct where we focus. That's not to say that we can't assist people that aren't, or land that isn't listed in as priority areas, but obviously they receive a higher priority. So this program also allows us to share resources across counties with the counties that are located within our watersheds. So we have shared funding in some cases, some shared staff, depending on staff capacity, and we can work across boundaries a lot easier because of this watershed planning. So, to work with soil and water districts, again, the overall mission is to assist the public with natural resource concerns, whatever those concerns may be. Again, we offer programs that are tailored to the needs of the community as well as the resources and priorities that we've identified. So in order to do that, it's important that we work closely with the public so that we're keeping up to date on the issues that are really affecting members of the community.
Are you more of an educational resource than an advocacy? I don't know if I'm asking that question correctly, but you know what I mean?
Right, so,
Education and support, but only if the farmer or the property owner comes to you seeking assistance.
right, and so, yeah, and so we do outreach. So like I said, within these watershed plans, we have, let's say, there's this lake that we know is close to being impaired or something like that. And so that would be considered a priority. Then we would take that information and maybe do a mailer to people that live on that lake and say, these are the programs that we have available, would you be interested? We have funds or technical assistance that can help you. So it goes both ways. People do come to us, but we also outreach. Again, we don't mail people and say, you have to
Yeah.
plant more trees, but yeah. And so anyway, yeah. I guess it says, reach out to your soil and water conservation district. We like hearing from people, you know, and understanding the needs and concerns of the community.
So where are you located?
We are on 603 North Central, so,
In a building all by itself?
yep, it's in the USDA building. It's a
Mhm.
federal building. It's maybe, I would say, a half a mile north of the main drag. I can pull up my,
Holiday Station.
yeah, yep, down the road to the holiday
Holiday
station, yeah.
Station,
Down by the Dairy Queen.
And then are you all full-time employees?
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
Yep, we share off. I mean, we have an intern that's not a full-time employee, but yep, we are. So
Are there
they're-
others besides you that work for the soil and water
Yeah,
conservation?
yep, and so we have a district manager. There's me, Rachel is back here. And then we have a bunch of technicians. So Jake, like I mentioned, is the watershed coordinator. We have Brandon, who is a forestry coordinator. And then Jack is a kind of a jack of all trades technician type. And then an intern. And then actually we have another forester starting pretty soon. He hasn't started yet, but yeah.
And those trees that come in bundles, you said they come in bundles of 25.
Mhm.
Do you have any deciduous trees?
We do.
Like oak?
Yep, we have oak trees. I did not bring a list with me. If you give me your contact information, I could probably send you out a list. But we sell a number of different trees. Obviously, they're native to the area.
Right.
But I mean,
And people could split bundles if you
Yeah.
don't want 25
Right.
of a.
yeah.
And we just go to your office and?
Yeah, so this is a kind of a weird time because we're doing the tree distribution starting on Friday. So generally throughout the year, starting in the fall, you can go on our website and order trees online. We took that down just because it gets confusing so close to the distribution date. But you buy them throughout the year, and then there are 2 days, so this year it would be this Friday and Saturday, where you go to the fairgrounds and pick them up.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And if you want more information about it, I can talk with you later.
Okay.
So yes.
So this Friday you'll be there? At the
Yep.
Fairgrounds?
Yep,
Okay.
we'll be there.
Is it too late to order?
So Rachel kind of runs the trees. She's the expert. It's not. Most of the trees, so we order a set quantity, right? And then we just sell them until they're sold out. And so some species are already sold out, but we do still have some available. So like I said, we can get in touch afterward and we can, if you're interested. So,
They're always in bundles of 25 though?
yes, so Hubbard County, they run a program with their lake associations where you can buy them in bundles of 5.
Oh.
Yeah, but in general, yes, it's bundles of 25.
Is every lake association making use of that? You probably don't know the answer.
No.
No, I don't think so. We had them out there today assembling things, and I know some are a lot more active in it, or
We
active
used
with
to
it.
have that offered and I haven't heard of it for a while.
Oh,
So just, sorry.
Okay. Oh, no, it's the point of it, so.
So for example, how much would a bundle of 25 trees cost?
About $50. They used to be a lot more inexpensive, and I think ever since COVID, they just shot up. And I think it's because they have difficulty getting crews to pull the tree or lift the trees when they need to. Yeah.
Okay.
So that's pretty much it for me. I'm gonna hand it on over to Heidi. Okay.
Pull up the slide of the background. That old photo.
Good afternoon. I'm going to do a little bit of the history of the SWCD and why we have the elections for supervisors and then I'll do a little history on the background of this particular SWCD. So let's go back to 1937. That's when the Minnesota legislature passed what's called an Enabling Act to give citizens the power to form soil conservation districts. The purpose was set out to conserve soil, water, and related natural resources on private land. The authority was granted for soil and water conservation districts to be political subdivisions of the state with certain powers and duties. SWCDs are also subject to other state statutes and rules which govern the conduct and operation of public bodies. So in this 1937 legislation, power was given to the citizens to decide what to do with these conservation districts. And then direct accountability was given to those that were elected as supervisors to address these public concerns and interests. So that kind of explains where that power was situated and granted to elect, the control at the local level. I'm going to give a little history on our particular SWCD. Keep that slide up. In early 1969, a group of interested landowners met to discuss the possibility of forming a district here in Hubbard County. In March of 1969, the public was invited to discuss the pros and cons of a district and to find out the purpose of district conservation. The next step was a petition filed May 6th in 1969 with the state of Minnesota Soil and Water Commission requesting the establishment of a district which would cover all of Hubbard County. At least 25 local landowners signed off on that petition. In October of 1969, a referendum was held to establish the district, and that was held and passed. The State Commission appointed two local residents, Ira Benham and Albert Peterson, for limited terms to start the proceedings to form the new district. In an election on January 8th, 1970, 3 supervisors were elected to the new SWCD district board, and the first board meeting was called in February of 1970. And at that time, the first officers were elected. And you see behind me our forefathers of the SWCD. A resolution was adopted at a board meeting on July 16th, 1974, and that divided Hubbard County into 5 districts for nominating candidates for the positions of SWCD supervisors. And this districting still exists today. Let's go into the mission statement. Back up. So the Hubbard County SWCD mission statement. The purpose of Hubbard County Soil and Water Conservation District is to conserve, protect, and enhance the soil and water resources of Hubbard County by providing leadership, education, and assistance. A mission statement is like a living document. It can and should be reviewed and updated regularly to reflect on the changing world and the priorities of an organization. Our mission statement is a reminder to those of us within the organization how important Hubbard County resources are and the role we can fulfill in helping the landowners and residents of this county in preserving and enjoying our natural environment. So the districts that you see on the left are where they were created in 1974. It's 5 districts. You can see them color-coded. And each of us represents one of these districts. I am kind of through District 3, the gold through the middle, and Don is here, and he's the light blue shade. As an elected official, we are responsible for operating the district as a political subdivision of state government. And under the responsibilities and expectations, there are basically 3 responsibilities that those fall into: policy development, operating the district as an elected official, and leadership. All right, becoming a candidate for supervisor. Basic qualifications: eligible voters, at least 21 years of age when they assume office. They must reside in their district they want to represent at least 30 days and have no other affidavit for candidacy on file for any other elected office. The filing period is held in May, and the filing fee has been $20 for quite a while. You're also required to file an affidavit of candidacy, and that is filed with the county auditor's office. Once elected, you're required to complete a statement of economic interest form. Under frequently asked questions, our terms of office are usually 4 years, and they are staggered, so no one's off the board for a period of time. It's 2 years, 4 years. There is a difference when you're replacing someone and you're appointed. In my instance, I was appointed on October 13th, 2021 to fill in a vacancy. So then in 2022, I was in a special election to fulfill that 2 years. And then when it came to the general election this past year, then I'm on the agenda for 4 years. So it gets staggered. Can an SWCD supervisor hold another elected position at the same time? Well, the answer is yes, and it depends. It depends on what your other position is within the county. And it's always best to consult with the county auditor just to clear the way if you have interest in holding 2 positions. Do supervisors receive compensation? We are not full-time workers. We are at a board meeting once a month, and there are other committee meetings and events that we attend through the year. So yes, we do receive some compensation for our services. Rate is about $125 a day, and then you get reimbursements for related expenses such as travel and mileage. Now, in the statute, under fulfilling the duties of a supervisor, there are people that would like to participate in public service. And the statute protects them so they have the ability to take time off from work and participate. And I'll read that to you. A person elected to a public office must be permitted time off from regular employment to attend meetings required by reason of the public office. It goes on to give further guidance to employees and employers on ways to negotiate time off for public service. What does it take to be a supervisor? Well, there's 3 elements: knowledge, concern, and leadership. All of us have a different knowledge of the environment, but I think we all know a little more about the environment, we think. And being a supervisor is a journey and a wonderful learning experience. Concern, I find particularly important. If you have a passion, you care about something, and when you care, that means you do take action, and that leads to the knowledge and the leadership. Candidate backgrounds vary. We have a list of all the different backgrounds: writers, researchers, farmers, foresters, horticulturists, farmers, ranchers, and it's not an exhaustive list. If you have an interest, your service is welcome.
Heidi, so for each of those 5 districts that you had a map of on there, each of those 5 districts have a board?
No, a supervisor.
Or each of them
A
have?
supervisor comes from
Each of
each
them?
district, and we make up then the board.
Okay. Oh, those, oh, I see, okay, so each of those 5 districts have one supervisor. And then
Correct.
when you're all together, you're the board.
Correct.
Okay, got it.
And then do you work in conjunction with the staff in the office? So you're, following the same guidelines and issues?
Yeah, we help set the policies.
Set the policy.
And we have a wonderful district manager that oversees the office, staff functions, grant writing. So we are in an advisory capacity, but we are at a bit of a distance from the staff because she is the manager.
So when we vote for you in our districts, then we are voting for the person to represent our interests in that district. So, I've never contacted my soil and water supervisor, and I'm wondering if do you get contact from your constituents in your district?
They do call, and they do often stop in the office when they have issues. They will come directly to the office for questions and assistance.
Okay. So that's welcome then?
Yes, oh yes,
You encourage that?
yes. We encourage feedback.
So if they go to the office, but you don't have a spot at the office,
No.
then the people in the office contact you.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. And
So people in the office then would say, hey, somebody came in and they wondered about this issue or that issue, that would potentially generate issues or policies that you want to pay attention to.
so the staff would try to answer your questions, help you resolve your issues, but we are also there for communication too. But your first line of contact would be Rachel walking into the office, and she would direct you to whoever could help you with your question. Yes?
I'm just curious, how much time do you spend as a
It varies. I find it varies by season. Right now, May is going to be extremely busy. At least one day a month for the board preparation and then the board meeting, which usually lasts 3 to 4 hours. It's 9 to 12. Then there are other commitments through the month that you may attend. There may be an event like this or an educational event. Other board meetings for planning for a future strategy. So it kind of goes up and down through the year. But the main commitment is that board meeting. Any other questions?
I do. On the ballot then, when, for example, when your name was on the ballot, how often do you have somebody running, against you?
I wish you would.
Just curious. I mean, I turn that ballot over and I see like one person.
One
this,
person,
One person
yeah.
for each of the
Yeah.
positions.
It
So
would
is
be
that
great if more people ran. Yeah, sometimes we're running unopposed, so we don't have to spend a lot of money on campaigning. Don't have to have a lot of yard signs out there. But we want to do events like this to get people interested too, because we welcome a run. So I just want to make a comment too on benefits of being a supervisor. You're a voice for your county. You provide time to improve the environment. You're active with assistance and educational opportunities for children. Provide leadership in the community. Develop leadership skills. And one thing that I think is most important to me, I've been expanding over the last 3 years, my own knowledge of environment, what can be done. You know, when I first started, I have remembered years ago about hearing about soil and water. And I kind of attributed that to farming. But now it includes pollination, pollinators, water quality, so many more things that I was not aware of. So it's been a real learning opportunity for me. And I just want to go back to that pie chart. So there are these flyers in the back. Pick one up and you can read it. It's a study, a report that was done by the National Resources Conservation Service. And it's dated as a 2021 report, the economic impact of conservation funding. And what they found in reviewing how their money was spent and what came in, for every dollar that we spent on conservation, we got back $1.81. So conservation is really important, and the communities are getting their funding back. For us, with the exception of our overhead and administrative costs and salaries, et cetera, the money that we put into the community by doing our projects, it's like the stone in the pond and the ripples come out. Those ripples are hiring people to use their heavy equipment for projects, buying supplies at your local stores. So the money that we spend comes back to you, and it enhances the quality of our life. The quality of water on the lakes helps the resort owners. And one of the reasons that I'm in this is when I was a kid, I grew up on the lake. Our family had a small resort, and I remember those hot summer days running down that dock and jumping in the water. And I want to see that for our grandchildren and their children. So it means a lot to me, and I know it does to all of you. So thank you very much, and I'm going to, well, you have your own mic, so Tara can take off with that.
Heidi, I have another question.
Oh, sure.
Once you became supervisor initially, did you have to take a little coursework?
Did I have to, pardon?
Take some coursework?
Yeah, we do. There's the opportunity for the staff to keep growing and the opportunity for the supervisors to take classes too.
So is this an online class you took or an in-person?
Some of them are, you actually go somewhere for a class.
And is that required or optional?
It's not required, but I would highly recommend it.
Sure. And how long have you been a supervisor now?
Let's see, I started, what was it, October 2021.
Oh.
And it was a hard start because we were in COVID. And so I didn't meet the other supervisors. I think it was for, what was it, months, wasn't it, Don? That we were doing everything by Zoom.
When you don't use the speaker, it isn't recorded then, is it? I mean, so it's a good idea to use the speaker at all times.
Okay, thank you. Tara?
Well, good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for the invitation to join you all. So Megan asked me, just because I work very closely with the Hubbard County SWCD, to basically talk about, my position with the University of Minnesota Extension. And I am officed over at the Hubbard County Fairgrounds. It's a county-funded department that basically they have a partnership with the University of Minnesota. And the mission statement of Extension is to address critical issues in Minnesota by connecting people to the research and the resources that the university produces. And I just recently finished my master's thesis, and I really realized how important it is to get the message of research out, because really there's a lot of time and effort that is spent into all these research programs, and if we don't get the message out, you might as well not even do the research. So a lot of those priority areas that Megan had talked about, all of those have been having research upon research, years upon years of all these studies that we need to get this information out to people. So I work alongside the SWCD a lot of times because your question about the outreach, that's more my component, is the education and the technical assistance. So that's kind of, there's that's the main part of my position, doing a lot of programs. And my specific position is with agriculture, like small farms. That's been the priority area. That's been really designated by the County Extension Committee. And that's kind of the governing body of my supervisors, basically. We have 2 county commissioners, and then we make up a very similar board like the SWCD with constituents across the different districts in Hubbard County. So a lot of that board, they direct my priority areas, and because I have a lot of different areas, it makes it really fun that I get to learn about everything. But big areas of small farms, agriculture, people trying to grow their own food, raise their own chickens, have horses, have pigs. I mean, it kind of goes everything. Honeybees. I dabble in a lot of different things. So that's the agriculture part. I also have the horticulture part, and that's more your growing flowers and your gardening and your lawn care, your trees. So I do a lot of programs on that. Natural resources. I do a lot of work with pollinators, pollinator plantings. That's been a huge area of interest. I have one program. It's an annual program that this one we do online, and it has 2,000 people attend it every January. It's kind of a nice, hiatus from thinking about -30 below January to think about pollinator plantings, but that's been widely successful. We also have, in terms of other natural resource programs, I've done foraging in the forest, up at Itasca State Park, foraging for mushrooms or just any other plant, decorations or anything that you can get from the forest. I do maple syruping classes, food preservation classes. That was really popular. How to can, how to dehydrate, and smoke your own meat, and so there's a lot of different things that my position gets me into. Yeah.
Where do you find out about all those classes?
So I have a handout back there, and I do a monthly e-newsletter, so it's just an email thing, and that's where a lot of this is in. I also put it in the newspaper. I put it on the radio. There's a couple. It depends on which kind of program it is to see. Like with the Itasca, I posted up at Itasca's, events page, so it kind of depends on what the program is, but the best way to know what these programs are and when is going to be doing this. So I have a QR code that you can do it online, or you can just fill it out and hand it to me. Kind of just what interests you. That really helps me judge, which programs I should prioritize. So there is a backside because I have a long laundry list of ideas for you to check and say, yes, I'm interested in, timber production or pollinator habitats. So I dabble in a lot of different things, but that is the best way. That's not only programs, but I also like to share resources, videos, articles, new research updates in that email. So I have about 500 subscribers to that. So I think people really enjoy it, and I really enjoy doing it because I get to learn too. So that's what's fun. I do all these same things too. So a lot of these things, like my winter garden college, that was a program I did about a month ago, and I told some stories about maybe having some mulch that I said, well, I started implementing straw mulch, and here were some downsides of it, and here were some advantages to it. So it's me learning it, and also me connecting with the researchers and the experts at the university to then tailor information to our area that's really specific to our area. And that's kind of what I've realized is I have to disseminate that information, because a lot of information that I get from the university is maybe for a Zone 4, is for the Twin Cities. They do, of course, research in Grand Rapids and in Morris, but it also really helps to have that local contact here for me to say, yeah, that says this, but it actually here is maybe a little different. So that's why I really think that my position is hopefully very valuable to a lot of people, that I have that technical assistance, that one-on-one perspective, that I can help individuals. So that's kind of what just in a very brief nutshell of what I do kind of coming up, I'm working on more of a homesteading program. A lot of people have been interested in doing a lot of those components, but kind of wrapping it up together and starting your own seeds and making sourdough bread. I've been working on my sourdough skills to do a program just on that. But having a cow to milk, or when you buy, a half a hog, what does that mean? What do you get? So there's a huge rabbit hole, but that's kind of what I'm working on right now, and also getting into the busy season of technical assistance. So I get a lot of calls and I get a lot of things that stump me, but I figure out who to contact and figure out the experts if I don't know. I also work with the Hubbard County Master Gardeners. So also on that back table, I have a brochure about just who the Hubbard County Master Gardeners are. I really appreciate working with them because I look at them as my colleagues, because they each have their own areas of expertise, and we can kind of, problem solve things together. So I have their priority areas where, it's not just gardening. So this program has really expanded, talking about horticulture skills, pollinator health, plant biodiversity, nearby nature, clean water, climate responsiveness, and local food. So there's a lot more to it than gardening, and it's really bringing the education to our local community. So that's information on becoming a master gardener. I also have information on 4-H. That's also part of my office, not my specific role. I have a colleague that does, who's an extension educator in 4-H. And so if anyone had any children or neighbors or grandchildren interested in 4-H, I have that information back there as well. So I also have my business card. I'm not sure if I brought anything else. Can't remember, but open to any questions. I don't know, has anyone heard of extension before? Okay, good. That was the main thing, knowing what I do.
I do have a question. If you're not from Hubbard County, can you still participate? Or are you stuck on county line?
As far as programs?
Yeah.
Definitely.
Someone from Monaga come up to a class.
Definitely.
Okay.
Because I don't have colleagues that do my same job in any of the surrounding counties.
Oh.
I draw a lot of people,
Okay.
which I think brings tourism, and people come up from the cities to come up to an Itasca State Park program. So it's definitely open to everyone, but the main goal is to help the long-term residents of Hubbard County. That's the mission that the commissioners are hoping for, but it's just a plus.
You just use the QR code to request the letter?
So, yes, so when you do the QR code, that will take you to a form that then says, you'll fill your name, your email address, and then what you're interested in, and then you'll start getting the monthly email, and then you'll be up to date on all the new programs I do.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah.
You also write an article in the paper.
Yes,
Is that-
forgot about that.
With regularity,
Yes, yep, once a month,
once a month?
yes.
Okay. Yeah, I read you.
Oh, good. I did a cover cropping one, I think, this last time, yes. I'm doing one on tomato trellising, the next one, so be on the lookout. I'm sure you'll be waiting with bated breath.
So what was your grazing program that you work with the soil and water on? I do know that you work with was that something you sponsored, or they sponsored it and you helped coordinate, or how do you work together like that?
Sure, I think I kind of butt my way in this year, but I think it's a good partnership. But that traditionally has been just a Hubbard County SWCD program. That's been a long-standing program, and that's just my passion area is growing up on a beef cattle farm, that grazing. I'm also on the Minnesota Grazing Land Conservation Association board. I'm a board member with that, so it's just a passion project of mine. In previous years, I had taught different presentations there, but now I think that I'm a little bit more influential, but in actually, coordinating the program and getting, I butt my way in. They haven't told me, they haven't told me to go away yet, but I'm hoping that I'm helping in that scenario. But yes, definitely with the small local farms, I think it's so important to have optimal grazing practices, because we're all in the watershed and this all, I mean, especially from anywhere from nutrient management to noxious weeds, that grazing really influences, or proper grazing. Improper grazing can really be detrimental to a lot of those environmental aspects, so that's why really having proper, rotationally, very properly managed pastures can be a great ecosystem. It's really cool how grasslands in our area have evolved with grazing animals. So it's really, when we have the sustainable practices, it's amazing what kind of species that you'll see out there, that species diversity, the water infiltration will improve. We can utilize animals as a tool, one of our tools, in order to have a better land, and it's actually better for it. That's what they grew up, or co-evolved with, grazing animals. So that's just my interest, one of my interests. I'm glad to hear that everyone has heard of extension. That's sometimes it's even a challenge to explain what I do to family members. They're like, "What do? You work for the state?" I'm like, "No, for the university contracted by Hubbard County." I can see why it's confusing, but as long as you benefit from my programs, I guess I don't care if you know who funds my position or how it is, but as long as you're benefiting.
I know there are some demonstration food forest sites around the county, I think, and it would be interesting to hear a little bit about that. And is that a SWCD DC project or extension or both?
It was a SWCD grant as far as, I mean, I was just an educational advisor to it, but that was definitely driven and paid for by the SWCD.
Yeah, so the SWCD got a CPL grant through the state to establish future food forest gardens, they call it. A couple, there's one in Depot Park, there's some throughout the county. And the request for grant funding for the next round just came up, and I think we're gonna pursue that again. It's a good program, as long as we have willing participants, and we have. There have been some people willing to sort of adopt those gardens and then maintain them moving forward, which can sometimes be a struggle, so.
What's at Depot Park?
What's that?
What is at Depot Park? Kind of you said there's a garden at Depot.
It's called a future food forest garden. It's kind of a tongue twister, but it's edible plants, basically, edible trees. So like
in our local Depot.
Yep. So they're in raised beds. You can see them there. There's signage, or should be. Yeah.
I've seen the plants, but I thought they were just like ornamental.
Yep. No, they're meant for eating. Yeah. And so there's, I forget what specific species are out there, but things like chokecherries and cranberries and stuff like that. So, yep.
No more questions?
Well, Tara, what are your thoughts or recommendations for fertilizer and pesticides?
Sure. So I think there are different preferences that I can accommodate. As far as university guidelines, inorganic, organic, just meaning, slow releasing versus commercial fertilizers, do the same thing as far as promoting plant growth. But when I have someone come up to me and say, what are my nutrient management options? And I want only organic, slow mineralizable nutrients. That's kind of where I look into that research. But there's no difference as far as differences in plant growth or the only difference is in terms of nutrient management and just the sustainability and keeping our nutrients where we want them. So I really take into account people's personal preferences when it comes to that, and then I make those guidelines and those recommendations based on what they're looking for. As far as pesticides, the university really recommends that it's called an integrated pest management approach. That pesticides are one component of a pest management solution. Doesn't mean that it's everything. It should be just one component, and a judicious and wise use of pesticides. That's what we're promoting, not the no pesticides or the, okay, everything should be sprayed with a pesticide, but let's use it in specific areas, and then let's try to minimize that use. So that's kind of how the university stands of, let's take what people's priorities are and let's make it work for them, is usually what I try to do. That's the main thing, is people come to me with a question and I usually have 10 questions for them after them asking this. So trying to make it very personalized to that person.
Sir?
This question is primarily for the elected public officials in the room. They're taking a bit of a heat these days, and I want to know if the Soil and Water Conservation District supervisors or the office ever gets any pushback from other vested interests who maybe aren't in alignment with what the SWCD office is trying to do. You want to take that, Don?
No, we rarely have any conflict with people that we interact with are interested in conservation. We don't have any critics that come in different ways. That's true with those staff members who are involved as well. Unless you have something different, Tara, that you have experienced.
No, I haven't really. With the university, constituents are very, very supportive, and commissioners have been as well.
So with no public opposition from running, other candidates running against you, you keep your head down, do your work, and you try to make people feel good about what they're doing and what they're thinking about. Is that correct?
Sounds good.
What a great job. Great job.
There is one issue that we are dealing with, and that is squeeze on federal funds. We don't know how many programs we are going to be able to continue that are federally funded. And that's a political issue. I don't know if you want to talk about politics.
I don't. Yep, that on Friday morning.
Could you sort of
Thank
restate
you.
what Don just said, because without the microphone, it's not going to be on the tape.
I'm like you, I'm like the lawyer.
You know, I do have to say that we were not really unprepared for funding issues, and because we're supposed to be long-range planning, our district manager has been looking down the road and looking for where we can ask for other funding and grants to fill in what could be a hole in the pot of funds, so.
When you talk about a district manager, I'm assuming you mean there are many districts within the state of Minnesota that are bigger than the district that you represent and the one that Don represents. Is that correct? How many are there?
There are 88 SWCDs.
One of your early slides. Yeah. Okay.
So there are 88, and they're basically 5 supervisors and then district staff. They all have maybe different concerns, like we do a lot of forestry, water quality. Maybe in southern Minnesota, they're more in the agriculture. So we have a variety of what our needs and wants and projects are. But we're pretty similar. And we are all, we're all under the state, and we also get information and recommendations from the State Board of Soil and Water.
One more question.
My question is probably primarily for Tara, and it may be something you can't answer, but I've been reading about the major universities like University of Minnesota, Wisconsin, some in Iowa, recommending higher higher nitrogen inputs as part of their best management practices. That being said, there's some spots where obviously nitrate inputs are a problem. And hearing that they're recommending more nitrate seems like,
Crazy.
wow, why would you do that? And like I've talked with George Kraft, who was nice enough to present here a few years ago, and he says that most of those, you know, like say if there was a 160 pounds per acre recommendation in a BMP beforehand, they might have moved that to 180 or 200 or whatever it might be. And that's geared toward optimum economic benefit to the farm. But Dr. George has said that the loss from that next level of input is usually in the 90% range. And I've thought for a long time that it's really a weird thing that we get into and we call that a best management practice. And it's coming out of the university, and I'm sure you don't personally have any like hammer to swing at that, but if we as constituents want to address that with the university, is there a process for that, or?
So maybe let's back up a little bit. That was actually one of my research projects, was actually nitrogen management use. And my thesis recommendation was to cut the nitrogen rates in half, and that has been the trend actually with the University of Minnesota. So I'm not entirely sure like which studies you're specifically referencing, especially across all of our crops have been decreasing in nitrogen rates, as well as the best management practices of split applying nitrogen. That has definitely been increasing in not only just at pre-plant, doing it depending like on the specific crop at corn, doing it at V6 and V12. So I'm not entirely sure, I guess, what that first, your first referencing is. There might be a couple of crops that maybe, but as far as all the ones, because that's my background is in agronomy, so keep very up to date on those new nutrient recommendations. As far as kind of what your second thing, or your second component of, you know, working with it or asking the university questions, that's who you're talking about. Really, a lot of the university research comes from different, the funding. So it's the different funding priorities. So I would more say less so on the impact or the results of the conclusions. I would say more, I think we should have a voice in directing what should be funded, what research should be funded, because there's a lot of proposals that go unfunded. That just, this is a really good research idea, but nothing gained traction. So things like the Minnesota Department of Agriculture, the NRCS, things, trying to get involved with those different funding agencies is the best way to trickle down what the university eventually ends up researching. So maybe that's kind of a different answer to your question, but as far as increasing nitrogen rates, that hasn't been a trend, at least in the 5 years that I've been graduated with the University of Minnesota.
To follow up, if you, you know, there's different soil types across the state, of course, and I think like Dr. George is kind of based in the central sands of Wisconsin, which is real similar to this area. To see, let's just take, maybe corn is recommended to have 120 pounds per acre. I know potatoes are usually far in excess of that. We have, like, we're in Cass County, just across the line from Hubbard here, and we have in Cass County average of 10 feet of soil between the surface of the ground and static water level. And in sandy soil, we know that the percolation of what's applied on top of the ground, the time for that application to get into the water is sometimes less than a day. Of course, we have problems because of that. But to see the, 120 pounds per acre to be cut in half, that would help a lot. But there's just, I don't see it really being put into practice on a commercial, industrial scale, I guess I should say. It's fun to watch people on the smaller scales, pick it up and run with it. And, growing your own food is a huge, I tell people all the time, I say, if you can grow your own food, you take all these problems and you get rid of it. I mean, it doesn't solve everything, but it solves a huge part of that. So it's great to hear you folks talk about food forests and things like that. And I want to thank you for doing this today. And it's nice to have people talk about soil and water conservation districts. I've been on the receiving end of people who don't really, think soil and water conservation is a thing to be concerned with, but thank you.
I think that's a good note to end on, and thank you all for coming. Rachel has an announcement that she'd like to make about the tree sale. So I'm going to let her come up here and just use the microphone and do that. And thank you, three ladies, for coming. And
good evening. My name is Rachel. I'm an admin assistant at Hubbard County Soil and Water. In November, you're probably not thinking of trees, but on our website, usually by the end of November, we're posting our tree sales for the following spring. And like Megan had mentioned, that it's kind of closed now, but this weekend, Friday and Saturday, Friday from 10 to 5 and Saturday from 10 to 2 at the fairgrounds, we will have some extra available that you can buy for $2 a piece. I don't have the species available with me right now. You could call the office tomorrow, or you could call on Friday, and somebody can help you with what we would have out there. But one kind of species we might only have 25 left, some we might have 150 left. So if you're interested in just buying a few, you could come and do it that way. Typically they come in bundles of 25. So I just wanted to mention that. And then also, we provide free nitrate testing the first Friday of every month, like she had mentioned, which would be this coming Friday. And if anybody has any water that they haven't brought to me, I can sure test that before you leave. So, thank you.
And thank everybody for coming. Good turnout.